Calls for a $100 boost to JobSeeker. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from the ABC, originally from The Conversation by Peter Martin, looking at calls for top economists. They want to see JobSeeker boosted by at least $100 a week and tied to wages. Now, the problem with this is if you make our welfare system too generous, it is going to disincentivize people from working, and I think that has been clearly demonstrated by the struggles some businesses have had trying to get employees at the moment. Literally, I went and got some new tires put on the Camry, and the lady there was saying we can't find workers. No one wants to work. They're all too happy sitting there not working. There you go. That's the problem, guys. Remember, these mechanisms are just meant to be an emergency last resort for people. Too many people seem to think that, you instantly get it. No, they've got the cards stacked against you. The Centrelink people have the cards stacked against you actually getting access to it. If you have savings, you got to burn through that. You got to wait all these periods, jump through all these hoops. I think the bureaucracy is enough of a pain in itself to discourage anyone to get it. So I guess if you go through the pain and you to the point where you're getting all these payments, maybe it really has to be worth you losing it. Otherwise, you may have to jump through it all again. So, once about as high as the pension, really. The JobSeeker or New Start unemployment payment has fallen shockingly low compared to living standards. It's now only 2/3 of the pension, just 40% of the full-time minimum wage, and halfway below the poverty line. JobSeeker has fallen relative to the other payments because while the pension and wages have climbed faster than prices, JobSeeker, previously called New Start, has increased only in line with prices since '91. In an apparent acknowledgement that JobSeeker had fallen too low, the government roughly doubled it during the coronavirus crisis, introducing a supplement to enable people to meet the costs of their groceries and other bills. But that supplement is being wound down from $225 per week to $125 on September 25th, and again to $75 on January 1, before expiring March 31. After March, the single rate of JobSeeker, including the $4.40 per week energy allowance, will drop back to about $287.25 per week. Now, this is very low money. It is not much. You cannot live comfortably off this. This is where when people make the argument about, Dole Bludger's living it high on the money, and I find that hard to believe. It's not much of a life. It definitely wouldn't be your best life. I think I think you're going to get people trapped in poverty. That's what I think is going to happen. Ahead of a decision about any permanent increase early next year, The Conversation and the Economic Society of Australia asked 45 of Australia's leading economists where they thought JobSeeker should settle. Only 4 think it should revert back to $287.25 per week. All but 8 wanted a substantial increase, more than half, 24 out of the 45, wanted an increase of at least $100 per week. The results mean that economists would be dissatisfied with the decision to leave merely increased JobSeeker by $75 a week in line with the supplement that is due to expire at the end of March. So, response from 45 economists to the question: when the coronavirus supplement expires at the end of March, the maximum amount received by someone on JobSeeker, single no children, would drop back to $287.25. Going forward, JobSeeker should stay at that, increase by $50 a week, increase by $50 to $100, increase by $100 to $150, increase by over $150 a week. So, a scant incentive to shrink, or to shirk. The 45 members of the Society's 57-member panel who responded include Australia's preeminent experts in the field of microeconomics, macroeconomics, economic modelling, labour markets and public policy. Among them are former and current government advisors, a former member of the Reserve Bank Board, and a former member of the Fair Work Commission's minimum wage panel. So I'd say a lot of them are interventionists. Many want an increase of about $150 a week to bring JobSeeker closer to the age pension and 50% of median income. Curtin University's Harry Block asked rhetorically whether unemployed people had lower needs than those on the aged pension. Labour market specialist Sue Richardson said keeping payments so low that people lost dignity and hope and suffered material deprivation hurt not only the people who were unemployed, but also those thousands of children who grew up in their households. I mean, that's a real point there. Is the problem is you can get intergenerational poverty, and then it's hard to break out of it. No one's mentioned, though, the other side of this argument. Rather than increasing JobSeeker, what if you dropped the minimum wage? So you had people who probably don't have the skills or capacity to get into a work, allow them to get into work. And then to offset that, we reduce tax-free thresholds. You know, maybe look at ways that money doesn't need to flow through the government to get into people's hands, where the government could step out of the way of private enterprise. I know that's not going to be popular, but it's something that should be discussed. So she knew of no evidence that suggested a low rate of JobSeeker increased the likelihood of an unemployed person getting a job. Jeff Borland said, even if JobSeeker was increased by 125 a week, those on it would still earn less than 1% of full-time adult workers and would face plenty of remaining financial incentives to get paid work. In research to be published in The Conversation on Monday, he examines a real-life experiment, the temporary near doubling of JobSeeker between March and September, and finds it played no role in creating unfilled vacancies. We'll go through that. We'll have to see. Because anecdotally it seems it has. Emerit Professor Margaret Nowak said JobSeeker had been driven to the point where it denied unemployed Australians the shelter, food and transport they needed to find work. Former Liberal Party leader John Hewson described the failure to adjust JobSeeker for 3 decades as immoral and a national disgrace driven by little more than prejudice. Going forward, there was overwhelming agreement among those surveyed that once JobSeeker was restored to an acceptable level, it should be linked to wages in line with the pension rather than increasing with prices as before. You know what? No, don't link it to wages. Link it to property prices, guys. Link it to property prices. Responses from 45 economists to the question, JobSeeker is at present indexed to the Consumer Price Index. In contrast, the pension is benchmarked to male total average weekly earnings, which have historically increased faster than the CPI in line with living standards. Should JobSeeker, and most are saying it should be indexed to wages, some say other, some are uncertain, or one is uncertain, and remain indexed with CPI. Nah, just forget CPI. Let's just tie it to property prices, guys. Then you'll get the best increase. Both sides of the political spectrum will want the highest dole because property will be to the moon. 2/3 of those surveyed want JobSeeker increased in line with wages, and of those who do not, several want the pension to increase more slowly in order to ensure the two move in sync. Gigi Foster and Jeffrey Kingston propose a halfway house, increase in both the pension and JobSeeker halfway between increases in the Consumer Price Index and wages. So wages determine living standards. And wages haven't grown, or the growth of wages has been low for some time. The growth of GDP on per capita has been below trend since the GFC, guys. So I'd say our living standards are going down. Or there's a divide. There's a divide between the property haves and the property have-nots, and that's seen in living standards. Others suggest practical measures to make JobSeeker better at getting Australians into jobs. Beth Webster suggests reducing the rate at which JobSeeker cuts out with hours worked to encourage part-time workers to take on more hours. Tony Macon suggests a relocation allowance to help people take on jobs distant from their current place of residence. None of the economists surveyed expressed concern about the budgetary costs of restoring the relative position of JobSeeker, estimated by the Parliamentary Budgetary Office to be $4.8 billion per year for an increase of 95 a week. Of course not. They don't worry about that. Several expressed the desire to put the issue behind them, instead increasing JobSeeker to a reasonable proportion of the pension or median wage and leaving it there, so that, in the words of Sol Eslake, this issue never arises again. So there we have it, everyone. What do you think? Do you think there should be an increase to JobSeeker, or are you concerned that it would result in, more people not working? Or do you understand Or do you believe that it should be at such a level that it doesn't impede people's ability to work? I mean, right now we're entering the first recession in 28 years. There's a risk of economic scarring, and there's a risk of multi-generational poverty and welfare dependency. That's the scariest thing that could come out of this. We need to incentivize people to work, and I would argue the government needs to get out of the way to allow it to happen. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Are you a fan and want to support the content I create here? There are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using any of the affiliate links you find down below from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays or Teespring. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.